Hello and welcome to the Dan Cave, and welcome to an inbox review of the new Toyota Celica GT4 ST165 from 91 from the Tour de Corse. Well, I had to go and have a look. So I'm going to do a quick inbox review of this kit, which will be an upcoming video build on the channel. So I did say in my last bench update I kind of fancied doing some rally cars this year. So to kick off this year, I'm going to kick off with this Celica. So this is one of the earlier Celica GT4s. Probably not as iconic or as memorable as maybe the later versions, but certainly looks an interesting kit, an interesting choice. So let's dive on into the box and see what it looks like, and we'll take it from there. I'll be back at the end to do some summing up. So just before we head over to have a look in the box, don't forget, if you're new here, please subscribe. Please drop a like if you like the video, and feel free to leave a comment as well. Subscriber count has been doing really well lately. We've gone over the 500 mark, so it'd be nice to keep that trend going. So if you're new here, please support the channel and drop a subscribe. So let's go over, have a look in the box, and I'll come back at the end for some final thoughts.
So this is the Toyota Celica GT4 ST165 from New from the 1991 Tour de Corse. So by this stage, the ST185 had replaced in the works team. So privateers were still running in 91. However, it did win World Championship, Drivers' World Championship, with Carlos Sainz in 1990. This particular model of Celica. So competitive car back then, fought many battles with Lancia. But this particular version, the 165, probably not as iconic or memorable as the later versions. But however, I quite like it. The kind of weird, slightly squareness of it. So you can see there's some pictures of a finish kit on the side of the box. Reasonably nice box art on the front. Usual kind of details around the sides of the box. You got some of the paint information on this side as well, and a little bit of info on the model itself. So when I originally put this video together, I did the voiceover live. However, due to some audio issues, I've had to come back and do a separate voiceover. So hopefully I can remember what I'm pointing at various points. I'll do my best. So let's open the box. So I have looked in this already. So a few bits have been looked at. Decided to go back and then do the inbox review. So as you can see, the body shell is already out of its little plastic bag that it came in. But we'll come back to that in a minute. Got some tires with some mesh and some polycaps. Got a little bag of chrome parts. I think chrome is just all the lights, basically. No real exterior chrome. Bag of bits, clear parts. Another bag of bits with some of the larger sprues on it. So let's start with the body shell. So it looks cleanly molded. There's no obvious defects. I'm just checking here to see where there are any seam lines. Almost no flash whatsoever. One or two tiny little bits around the window openings. Seam lines normally tend to run up this kind of rear window area down onto the boot. In this case, on this kit, the seam just runs along the back of the rear window, just where I'm showing there. And then that probably runs forward into the gap between the bonnet and the front wing. So luckily enough, that means there's not going to be a huge amount of cleanup of seam lines. One noticeable feature on the car is probably the A, B, and C pillars. So they're extremely thin. So these supports, which are molded into the window openings, they will probably stay in place until very late in the build process. So it'll probably go all the way through paint, deckling, and clear coat before they get removed, because those pillars look very fragile, and you don't want to damage them because they never come back into shape properly. But all of that kind of window surround will probably be done in semi-gloss black, which will be at the very end of the process anyway. So yeah, so here's the chrome bag. So pretty much all the chrome parts are just for the lights. So there'll be inserts for the headlights, tail lights, etc. Not too much to look at because it's not external chrome, so I'm not too worried about the exact standard of the chrome that it's got here. So yeah, so lights only. So let's move on to the next bag. So let's have a look at this bigger bag and see what we've got in here. So quick knifing just to get it open. They are just sealed down with adhesive, but sometimes to save the fiddling about, just run a quick knife. Luckily enough, the rustling noise is now going to be gone, actually, because I'm doing voiceover. So I don't have to apologize for the rustling of NuNew's plastic bags. So first sprue. So this has got the roll cage, which looks all reasonably cleanly molded. A couple of minor injector pin marks, a couple of minor bits of flash. And then we've got what appears to be a strut brace, which I would imagine is for the rear because there's no engine detail. So next up, we've got the sprue containing the front bumper and kind of front splitter. We've got the interior tub, pretty much with a sidecar door card molded into him, so full tub. Nice bit of detail in there. We've got 5 wheels, 5 Oz Racing wheels. 4 of them will be the running wheels and 1 will be the spare wheel, as you can imagine. Details are a little bit soft on wheel nuts. Maybe not as crisp as some other manufacturers, but they should paint up okay. We've got the dashboard with some molded in kind of switch detail. Some interior parts. There is an aerial for the roof. Looking at that and having seen some on previous NuNew kits, that can be a little bit thick. So that's probably worth nipping off at the base, maybe drilling it out and adding a piece of wire to represent a much more accurate aerial. We've got, yeah, what looks like the nice kind of front bumper. So that will probably go on before the chassis goes together, but we'll get to that in the video build anyway. We'll figure that one out. But it does look like it'll just slot straight on the front. And hopefully the chassis will still fit. So seats look reasonably well molded. The cutouts for the seat belts need a little bit of cleanup. I don't think I have a full set of photo etch for the seat belts. I do have some ribbon, so we'll see what we can do with that a bit later. We may just stick with the kit decals for this for a quick kind of video build. But I'll have a look and see what's in the spares box for that. So we've got all the interior components: handbrake, gear lever, steering wheel, all reasonably nicely molded. You can see there is a little bit of flash on the runner itself, but very little of that is shown on the parts. And you know, that's not really going to affect the build at all. So we've got the main chassis. You can definitely see the curbside nature of this. That entire kind of underside is the molded in engine detail. A little bit of kind of molded chassis detail as well. Of course, for a kit like this, because it's a rally car, most of that's going to be covered up underneath a skid plate, which will probably go under the engine and probably under the rear diff area as well. So that tends to be the case with rally cars, because obviously you don't want to scrape the bottom of the car on any kind of debris while rallying and risk damaging your gearbox, etc. So we've got some injection molded mud flaps. They do have some injector pin marks on them. So that's something that will need to be dealt with. Interestingly, the brake calipers are molded separately, which will probably make painting them a little bit easier. So we can kind of just paint the discs and calipers separately, saves on a certain amount of masking. And then we've got a single piece exhaust, looks like a straight through exhaust. Probably want to drill out the end just to give it a little bit of depth, make it look more realistic. So that's all nice and good. So the next little bag, again, just going to slice this open, make some rustling noises. Luckily enough, because I've done a voiceover, you miss out on the joy of rustling noises from plastic bags. So we've got a couple of little parts which look like the headlight assemblies, because this Celica has the very sporty and fashionable back then pop-up headlights. So they look like they'll be molded in the open position. Unlike some other kits, they won't be movable, which is probably a good thing. Then we've got the insert for the front grille. And it looks like there's a separate insert here as well as the wing mirrors. Yeah, so it looks like there's an upper grille part as well, which I would imagine will be in semi-gloss black. So here we have the suspension and hub components. So as you can see, it's got the other half of the brake caliper molded. So there's ones for the front and rear. Obviously the front ones have the additional tabs for the steering. And then the rear ones don't have that feature. So you've got a rear drive shaft and a front subframe. And kind of rear diff mechanism. This is a curbside kit. It's not a huge amount. So here we appear to have some front wheel covers, which again was quite common to see on rally cars back in the late 80s, 90s. We've got what looks like a fuel tank for the rear. Probably sits in the boot. And we appear to have the pods for the night lights, which I've never been keen on putting the nightlight pods. I think it spoils the look of the car, but can look okay in some cases. But generally, I don't do it. So these are clear parts. I'm not going to take them out of the bag. Keeps them as well protected as possible. Looking at them, there's a little bit of distortion. Not a huge amount. Probably not the best glass I've seen from NiuNiu, but definitely, not as bad as some other kits I've built. It's one of the kind of letdowns of some of the Revell kits. So it's not bad. Might decide to tint some of it, but we'll see when we get to that stage. We'll have a look at some reference pics of the rally car itself. So we've got the bag with the 5 tires, which do have quite a prominent seam line. So at the very least, the spare will have that removed. We've got 5 poly caps and a little bit of mesh, which I guess will go probably in behind the bottom of the front grille, I think. So we've got not a huge decal sheet, because again, this is basically a white scheme with some sponsor logos. These sticky bags are a bit of a pain, so I do like to slice off the adhesive bit because you don't want to risk getting that adhesive stuck to your decal sheet because you'll end up damaging your decals. And I can now struggle to actually get it out of a bag. Yep, that's definitely me struggling to get some decals out of a bag. So we have the window surrounds as decals. Normally I tend to paint these. I've not tried the decals. Maybe on this kit I might. just to see how they work, because I've never really seen how they work. It might be interesting to see how that plays out. So we've got one of the smaller sheets which has got, a lot of the seatbelt details, interior details, number plate, rally plates, and some tire decals as well. So these are regular decals, unlike the kind of Tamiya reverse decals they normally have for tires. But they look reasonably okay. Maybe a little bit thickly printed, but in the past, the new decals have gone down pretty well. So I wouldn't expect any problems here. And then this is the main sheet, which has got the main sponsor details and the various red and blue stripings. Single car number included, so it's car number 15, driven by Mark Duez. And yeah, that single kind of main sponsor for a car. So again, the sheet feels a little bit thick, but previous new decals have kind of felt the same, but have gone on okay, so I'm not too worried about it. Plus, they'll be under 2K, a little bit of flatting back. They'll probably disappear under the 2K. So, onto the instructions. So, it's kind of the standard instructions for Nunu at this stage. So, you got history of Toyota in rallying, history of the car, usual kind of precursors. So, you've got the paint callouts, which paint numbers are for Mr. Color Lacquer Paint and Mr. Hobby Aqueous Colors. So basically, Mr. Hobby's lacquer and acrylic paints. So the build sequence, as it's pretty much always for these cars, starts somewhere completely different from where I will actually start. So the first thing for me will be to get the body work done. However, in this case, it actually starts with the chassis and suspension arms and brakes. So they'll all get painted up, detailed, brake discs assembled, add in the drive shaft and the exhaust, add in the front subframe, and then there's the variety of skid plates that go under it. And then there's a separate little piece which seems to sit in the middle. Not sure if that's some kind of heat shield or something for the exhaust. Then the wheels can go on. And then you can start detailing the interior. So there is a rear strut brace which goes across between the two suspension pillars. Got a fuel tank, a couple of fire extinguishers, various controls to go inside, dashboard, seats, assembly of the roll cage. Now I'll probably assemble the roll cage early on and get that kind of painted with the body, because it's probably going to be white as well. But sometimes it's easier to paint and get it sorted if you just build it kind of separately as a roll cage. So then you've got add the decals to the inside of the windscreen. Interestingly, it asks you to add the wiper blades at this stage. And then all that gets inserted from underneath. Yep, including the wiper blades. Which, it'll be interesting to see how that fits. So then it's on to external details like the lights, chrome fittings for the lights. As I said before, I'm not too worried about the chrome because they're going to be hidden behind any of the light details. Various external bits and pieces, wing mirrors, front grille, etc. And then final assembly, interior tub sandwich between the chassis and bodywork. So as we can see on the parts guide, there are some blacked out parts. So they will be for the night pod. Because I did notice in the clear part, there was no clear parts for those additional lights. So those parts are not used on this particular variant. A couple of other parts blacked out as well. So they'll not be used either. So yeah, so all in all, fairly simple kit from NuNu. Looks like it'll go together well. Obviously, you can't tell everything from an inbox review like this, but that's where you come back for the video build and find out how it all goes. So that's pretty much it for me. So let's go back for some summing up.
So that was the Celica GT4 ST165 inbox review. So, yeah, it's kind of a fairly standard kit from NuNu. Pretty much curbside, but well molded, looks reasonably well designed. Like most of their kind of rally car, actually like most of their kits, it should go together quite well. Obviously, there's very, you can't really tell how a build is going to go necessarily just from an inbox review, but certainly gives a little bit of a preview of what's there and what's going to come up in the video build series. But yeah, I quite like the look of it, quite like the scheme, as I said. So yeah, so it looks a nice kit from NuNu. I'll be honest, the kit releases they've had over the last few years for me have been top notch. They've hit a lot of plus points in terms of their content and subject matter that they've covered. So really pleasing to see this kind of constant stream of I suppose what are now almost classic rally cars, but certainly the rally cars I remember, from my youth watching rallying. So yeah, so I'm kind of looking forward to this. Looking forward to what I can make of this kit. So yeah, so watch out for the upcoming video build series on this. However, in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to drop a like. Hit the bell notification. You get notified when all the videos come out. And of course, feel free to leave a comment. All interactions are greatly received by this channel. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you very, very soon. Bye for now.